Mr. Olmert, welcome back to the program. I wonder if I could pick up where I left off with Gershom Gorenberg. I asked him about the seemingly competing imperatives to get the hostages back, for the Prime Minister to, do what the families want, and that is to safeguard the hostages, and at the same time to, quote unquote, crush Hamas militarily and politically. Are the two possible at the same time?
It's a very good question, Christine. And I'm not sure that on television, because I think it's very sensitive where it's possible to do this and that at the same time. Government will have to take a decision. And I think that this is, I would say, a Churchillian decision. What do we do first? Do we focus on the evacuation and the release of the hostages, or do we continue with a full-fledged military assault against Hamas? And can it be somehow joined together?
What would you do as Prime Minister? What would you do?
I doubt it.
What would you do?
I doubt it.
What would you do?
When I'll be Prime Minister, I'll tell you. One thing I can tell you, that when I was Prime Minister, I thought that the deal that we made about that was offered to us to release one prisoner was totally unacceptable, and I turned it down. Now we have 238. One was released last night in a heroic military operation of our Secret Service, which is very encouraging, but we still have 238 hostages. And I don't think that Hamas is ready or will be ready to release them in a quick deal. Mm-hmm. It will take a lot of time to release them. So if the condition for releasing them is ending the military assault, then practically we have to give up the military assault for something which is questionable and perhaps even impossible, because I don't think that Hamas will release them in one shot. They will then stretch it over a long period of time, and which will make the military operation obsolete. So the question is, what is the strategic interest of the State of Israel? And this is a very tough question to answer at this point.
Gosh, I mean, to hear you, question that is incredible, because that is exactly what all this boils down to. What is the interest and how to achieve it? But in the meantime, even Israel's closest friends, the United States of America, are getting more and more upset, and politically, the president, the Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor, all of them asking Israel to please take care of the civilians. We've heard, and we will play his interview after we talk to you, there is no safe place in Gaza. None of these civilians, whether they're even listening to the request or the warning to move from north to south, there's no safe place. It's all getting bombed. 8,000 dead, many of them children, and aid not being allowed in. I guess I just want to ask you, as a Prime Minister, would you have imposed a total siege, no humanitarian aid, and even bombing the so-called safe areas?
Christian, two things that should be emphasized. Number one, with all due respect to the numbers that you quote, the numbers are not verified. They are absolutely blown out of any realistic proportions about the dead and the wounded. And this is part of the propaganda of Hamas, which has to be taken with a grain of salt.
Okay.
And with all due respect, I can't accept it, and I suggest that you will be very careful when you...
Okay, I ask you this specifically. Prime Minister, because all of your IDF spokesmen and people say, how can you take Hamas numbers? First of all, we have checked with UN people and World Health Organization, and they say to us, in the past, the 5-6 cycles of conflict, these figures by Hamas-run Gaza Ministry of Health were considered credible. So too does the World Health. But I'm not going to get I'm not going to get, tied up in a numbers battle with you. It is
All right,
awful,
let
and
me-
the civilians are
let
being
me-
bombarded. How does that help your war effort?
Let me try and respond. First of all, with all due respect, the UN numbers are as credible as Hamas numbers. We leave it aside for a second, okay? I don't trust the UN numbers. The UN numbers are not very reliable.
50 of their own people have been
is-
killed, they tell us. Actually, 60 now. 63
All right.
of their own people.
I regret the deaths of, believe me, I regret the deaths of everyone, and I'm very sorry for that. But that doesn't mean that their reports about the number of casualties and number of victims are necessarily accurate. But the most important question is what is expected from Israel to do. When President Biden was in Israel, and President Biden is a friend, and I have no doubt about his total commitment, moral commitment, and commitment for the security of the state of Israel. When he said Israel has a right to respond, and we understand that Israel will respond and will support it. What did he expect? What can we do that will not, unfortunately, involve a certain degree of collateral damage? We want to avoid as many victims as we can. And by the way, Israel agreed for humanitarian supply to the Palestinians that were pulling out from the center of Gaza in the south. And the fact is that every day there are tens of trucks, convoys of trucks that are coming from Egypt and providing supply and humanitarian support for the Palestinians.
Yeah.
Not only that we agreed to it, but there was a big debate within the nature of the Israeli government, which is entirely
I know, but there's a drop in the ocean. We've been watching it. Prime Minister, we have people on the border. It's a drop in the ocean. It hasn't been meaningful yet. Hopefully it will be. But I guess I want to ask you another question then, because your government, your defense minister, all your different ministers have laid out exactly what they think. Full total siege of Gaza. They've said it. Gaza is going to be reduced to a strip full of tents. They've said it. We are going to remove all restraints from the IDF. Yoav Gallant has said it. So they've said these things, and I wonder how it's going to turn out. But what I want to ask you especially... Mr. Prime Minister, listen to me. I want to know whether you think this is going to make you safer in the long run, because the latest polls show, and they were taken in Gaza before the war, before October 7th, that a majority of Gazans do not like Hamas. They want to be freed of Hamas. So this collective punishment, where do you think it's going to put future generations?
As Hamas will be in control of Gaza, there will not be any change. They will continue to be the victims of the atrocities and the iron fist of Hamas against the civilians in Gaza. The only way to release those people that suffer from Hamas in Gaza is to eradicate Hamas, which means that Israel has to continue its military operation and to try and do it in the most careful manner in order to reduce the collateral damage to the maximum possible, and that's what we are trying to do.
Prime
we
Minister?
have to do something. You know, when I ask you, Christine, when you said and you interviewed me on the first day that you understand that Israel has to react, what exactly did anyone expect that Israel will do? Can we attack Hamas without reaching out for where they are? And if they are in the center of Gaza, can we do something that will not possibly also create a certain collateral damage, which is unavoidable? But how can we release Gaza from Hamas if we will not attack them?
We will continue to follow this. Éihud Olmert, thank you very much for being with us.